All right, well, welcome to Sleep In Cinema's series of interviews with Sidewalk Film Festival 2026 directors. My name is Gareth Jones. This is Craig Saravalo. We're an internet radio show here in Birmingham, Alabama. We broadcast live on Saturday mornings from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, and then rebroadcast on WBHM 106.1 The Hub, a terrestrial radio NPR station. So there's lots of ways to listen to us, but this is part of our interview series with directors, as I mentioned, and we're super excited to welcome Jess Zeidman to the show, who is the director of Human Theories, which I got to tell you, it made me work in a good way as an audience member because it tells this incredible story of it seems like a day or so in New York with all just a cast of at least 100, and I don't think that's exaggerating. So it tells all these just little small vignettes and all these connections that people have, and it's beautifully done and constructed. It's funny, it's poignant, all these wonderful things. But the first thing we'd like to ask our filmmakers is, how did you come to this story? How did you find this and get to tell it to us?
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed the work of watching the movie. With Human Theories, I really approached it process first. I've primarily been working as a writer and producer, and I was really hoping to direct something. And I was thinking what would be exciting and interesting to direct. And I was thinking about, from a producer's standpoint, like what are the best days on set? What are the best kind of working conditions and things that feel fun and worthwhile and sustainable? And so I had this idea that it would be interesting to approach a feature from an experimental process place of filming a couple days every month and not having to worry about someone's, like, one person's schedule and trying to, like, I don't know, create this sort of patchwork. And so I have been living in New York for 8 years, but I grew up in New York State, and my mom is originally from the city. And so I have a lot of love for New York City and all the characters it contains. And I thought that it would be a really great way to showcase the kind of comedic awkwardness that we all experience as people, especially in any sort of city life of like running into people and having to interact with strangers and all of that kind of mix. And so from there, I just kind of had a whole list of scenes I've always been interested in writing and pushed myself to write them in a way that they could run like a relay race. And that's where the idea came from.
Well, you did a great job with it. And again, yeah, Craig and I were talking about the size of the cast. The opening credits are great. I love the music. But then you see this giant list of cast. I mean, how did you go about casting this film? I mean, that must have been quite a challenge.
Yeah, I worked with my friend and manager and also producer on this film, Tam Sackman, to cast this film. She has lots of amazing comedic clients, actors, writers, stand-up comedians, improvisers, playwrights, all these kinds of people. And so, working from her talent pool, we just sort of created this huge matrix of who all these characters are and what kind of funny people could fill in those roles and who was available for which weekends. And we kind of went as we filmed. So we would just kind of check in with people a couple months before to be like, will you be around this weekend? And possibly another weekend in the future month. And again, from there, we just like built it out. We sort of built the train while we were riding it. It was a big sort of, let's see what works and what feels good process. And that came to the casting as well. But yes, most of those people are New York local artists in their own right. And it's a lot of friends and a lot of people I've seen in other people's films and projects. And so from there, we just kind of built out our little universe.
Well, you did a fantastic job with that, and maybe that begs the next question. You talked about structure and how that kind of led you to this story. I mean, how much of it was all written ahead of time and organized, or was there any improvisation with these characters?
Oh, there was plenty and plenty of improvisation. Working with all of these comedians, I mean, I mean, I love to just kind of keep rolling the camera and see what happens. And I think something that worked really well, there's both the improvisational of like certain lines or jokes, but I think even more so as a director, I learned about sort of the level of improv that comes from a place of like characters and like their mannerisms. And something that was so fun was seeing, on the page, these characters were like very light sketches, and working with such a comedic and talented cast, it was fun to see like who do we want to build this person into being, because like that specificity is what gives each of the vignettes its own special something. If it was all the same kinds of people over and over, you'd be like, okay, whatever. But we really worked to be like, let's see what kind of weirdo this is. Let's see what kind of person, like what kind of quirks and idiosyncrasies we can bring, and the actors really brought those. I think it's like an amazing thing to have a collaborative relationship where you can see someone try what they think would be funny and awkward or strange or interesting, and that was definitely something I was very game for and excited for and built into the process. We always had enough time to do a couple improvisational takes and run with that and be able to adjust in order to make the funniest things possible.
Yeah, it's. Do you know how many vignettes there are?
There are
Tell me.
40.
40. Okay. Because and I noticed that a couple of them. Which did you decide? I'm assuming you had to give it some time to breathe and go. Okay, well, maybe I'm so interested in the editing process of this because the vignettes are so concise in a great way. I think about them like William Carlos Williams poems. Like they're just a few lines, and you're getting so much character work out of such a 2 or 3 minute scene. How much of was there some that you felt needed to breathe more than others? You got exactly what you needed out of that one scene and went, well, we got that. Let's keep moving. How did that process go? Did you have some that you said, oh, this would be a great scene that you just came up with while filming another scene? Like, how did that, was it, or I'm assuming it'd be a lot more organic than just a structure. I mean, you had to have a lot of structure, I'm sure, for logistics, but in terms of the creativity, how organic was that process?
It was organic in a way that it was durational. So we filmed starting in October of 2024, and we finished actually around this time last year, August of 2025, doing it a couple times a month. And we edited the film as we went, and so I was able to see the scenes come together. And so I feel like the first couple we filmed were definitely like overshot and like we're doing too much and we're like over complicating it. And as we went, I mean, both, it was sort of a grad school experience for me, getting better at directing, especially directing this film, but also learning like what was necessary and unnecessary, and also what kind of humor was working and what kind of humor we weren't getting, and rewriting and reconfiguring from there. I always think about like in an early draft of the script there were no scenes about roommates, but like living in a city, especially a city as expensive as New York, like people are having roommates always, endlessly. And that is like such an important relationship. And so it was important to like, oh, let's add in these scenes with like this kind of like funny roommate character and that sort of dynamic. And like that's where that would come from. Also, sometimes these scenes would the joke or the bit would change when we were on set. We'd realize something about the location was more interesting, or the performance would be more interesting, and we would follow that instead of the original, like, oh, it's going to be something like this. I also think that when we talk about like how long or short they were going to be, that was a very like every scene was a lot longer in the original rough cut of the film to just give us the most possible options. But we did a lot of testing with friends coming over and watching cuts of the film and seeing like, where does this hit the hardest for you, and where do you check out of the scene, or where do you feel like it's starting too early or too late. And so that was a lot of like collaborative feedback, which was helpful. But for the most part, I think I just wanted to focus on having it feel varied and interesting and rhythmic. I mean, the jazz music in the film, I think, is also supposed to be representative of the nature of the film. And so, again, using that as a guide of like, let's make sure that it feels consistent and like, cohesive, but also like interesting and surprising. And so that came from that flexibility to change while we were filming, and also a lot of flexibility in the edit to be like, oh, we thought this character was the focus of the scene, but maybe it's this person, and then like switching the order around so that feels stronger, things like that.
Yeah, and it's interesting is that to going into it just as a viewer to get into the rhythm of it, to see the rhythm that you've set out. It takes a few vignettes to go, oh, I see what's going on here, and then you're
Of
in
course.
it, and then you're kind of participating in that. Like, well, now I get it. Is like watching a jazz like improv. You're like, okay, well now I get it. Now I see what's happening, and then just like when the roommate comes back into a scene later, there's some things that recur.
Hmm.
When, how did you choose which were coming back? Was that like a natural progression, or like, okay, I want to see more of this person. Let's write a new scene to see what's happening with her later. How did that work in terms of what you chose was going to make the final cut?
It's a great question. I think for the most part, I wanted everybody to have options for their character to possibly carry forward or not. And then in the edit, based on the strength of the scenes, we ordered and reordered a lot of the scenes, because they have maybe not just two people but like three or four. We could then like switch it up, change it up, and like reorder and rework. But I think something that is helpful about like choosing when, like, oh, someone's coming back later instead of a direct connection, is again to keep that sense of surprise and excitement. I think it's easy, as you said, it takes about, I feel like for most people, around 3 to 4, sometimes 5 scenes to realize like, oh, this is running like this funny little relay race. And I kind of like that you kind of get it, and then we're going to change it up on you, and then we're going to change it up on you again. Because if it was just that like plain relay race all the time, you'd be like, okay, I get it, that's the gimmick, onward and upward, go for it. But I think again, to both that jazz improvisational thing, but I also think just the experience of being a person, like, you think about somebody and then you see them at the grocery store. It's like the weird thing of like, people do come back into your lives in these surprising ways, and that's such a big part of the human experience. And so again, I'm putting the audience in this place of this like observational, like, you're having a weird day and then there's this weird person, and I want you to feel that kind of
Natural too. Like it doesn't feel like you're just dropping in somebody, and I think that credits the actors because it all felt very real. Because if one person is chewing up the scenery a little too much, it's going to take everybody out of it. And there's not a single vignette where that happens. And I think that had to feel good to go, oh, everybody nails it. Like everybody knocks it out of the park and does their thing. It's got to be rewarding to see that.
it's extremely, extremely rewarding. I mean, I think something that is daunting about a project like this is, are the puzzle pieces going to come together? Or are we going to have a couple pieces where we're like, we're fitting them in, but like it doesn't really go there, but it's got to go in there, like we don't have time to cut. Um, but no, I am so incredibly proud of this cast, and I think a huge to their absolute like benefit, they all really got it, and it wasn't a lot of explaining it, especially because of so many of them are local and have had similar experiences. But I also think we as a creative team, as a cast and crew, we all really, focused ourselves in that the real is what's funny. Like, I think there's a lot of silly and absurd moments, but they have to come from a place of like, this could happen in real life. And playing it that way is so much harder to the testament of the cast again, but also so much more vivid and interesting instead of playing it all for jokes. And I think getting to that place was also a benefit to like a lot of shooting on location, a lot of it feeling like we're in this bodega and it's open. So it's like, this has to feel a little real because it's already feeling a little real. And that sort of documentary approach, my cinematographer Leo Gallagher also works in doc, and I think because of the shooting style and the sort of culture around the like camera and lighting setup we were kind of forced into shooting on location, it had to feel a little real because there wasn't a lot of artifice, and that helped the performances as well.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to ask one final question, and we were talking earlier about how uh, it's very much a film about our time with people having to have a lot of roommates in New York and all those sorts of things, and definitely new generations in New York. But I also thought it had a really timeless element to it. I think the jazz music helped that tremendously, and so it reminded me a lot of great New York movies. Whether it's Dunham or Greta Gerwig or if John Cassavetes, who all embraced the awkwardness and just it. They had a fondness for people who were annoying. I think in New York, right? They embraced that. So was that? I mean, were those any influences on you, or did you have any? Like, did you want to embrace that as well and say, yeah, people can be annoying as can be here, but they're also lovable.
Yes, oh, definitely. I'm very inspired by everyone you named and other, New York filmmakers. I love the sort of Girlfriends by Claudia Weil, Walking and Talking by Nicole Holofcener, and then of course the Frances Ha, Greta Gerwig, Noah Baumbach, like that sort of evolution is very influential to me as a filmmaker, as well as just, right, Girls by Lena Dunham and all the other sort of amazing art that comes out of our incredible city. But when it comes to people being annoying, I think that people are so, insecure and in their heads and overthinking things. And as technology has, encroached more and more upon us and our lives and the way we operate, we have a hard time connecting with each other. But it's such a benefit to like how uh, we have to do that, in city life. Like we have to connect because we're all so jammed together. And so that awkwardness and annoyingness is just something I find very endearing, and I think is really important when it comes to, you know talking about what it's like to be a person right now.
Very 20, 25, 26 too. Like it's not, with the phones and how everyone is interacting on the trains, and this is one of the most of the time films I've seen about New York. I mean, ever really. I mean,
Yeah, we really wanted to capture the New York that we live in. I think a lot of people uh have ideas of what it's like to live here and be here, and then social media makes a whole other story. But like a lot of it is like you're going for a walk and you run into a weird person and you're having a strange interaction, and you got to keep going about your day. I'm very interested in showing people the world I've been able to like come up as an artist in.
well, it's fantastic. I really enjoyed watching it. I really enjoyed finding that rhythm and just kind of going on that ride. So thanks again. Congratulations on a great film.
Thank you so much, and I'm gonna be at Sidewalk, so I hope to see you guys around.
Just
I
real
can't
quick,
wait.
it's playing at 2:15 at the Sidewalk Cinema on Saturday, August 29th. So please show up. We highly recommend it. It's a delightful, fun, participatory film, and Jess will be here, so you can come and ask her a question or say hello and congratulations again on. We're excited to have you here at Sidewalk and here in Birmingham.
Yeah, I'm excited to visit. All right, thanks so much.